My name's Amanda Ellis, and this is my Dismantling Stereotypes project for SPED 4030. For this assignment, I decided to watch and analyze the movie Rain Man, released in 1988. This movie is about Charlie Babbitt, who travels home after finding out that his father has passed away, and he discovers that he has an older brother, Raymond, who has autism. In an effort to receive his late father's inheritance, Charlie takes Raymond on a cross-country trip where the two really get to know each other. So looking at ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, it's defined as a developmental disorder characterized by abnormal or impaired development in social interaction and communication in a markedly restricted repertoire of activity and interests. So from our textbook, some general characteristics of individuals with ASD are challenges with communication and social interaction, repetitive movements and behaviors, resistance to change, sensory sensitivity, theory of mind, and speech that sounds irregular in rhythm, intonation, or tone. Looking at Rain Man's portrayal of ASD, the main character Raymond does show quite a few typical characteristics associated with ASD, such as we see he has a need for routine. Ray says that he drives the car on Saturday, eats dinner at 6:30, lights out at 11 every day. Looking at his nonverbal communication, Ray doesn't really make a lot of eye contact, but will often be looking at the ceiling or around the room. With his verbal communication, Ray often doesn't answer questions directly, but may answer with an unrelated topic or kind of a limited verbal response. He does have sensory sensitivity in the sense that he doesn't like physical touch, such as hugs or high fives, and is also sensitive to loud noises like a fire alarm. And lastly, Ray takes things very literally, such as the "don't walk" street sign in one scene of the movie. There are also parts of this movie that are not fully representative, however. Ray is really portrayed as having something known as savant syndrome. And savant syndrome is when individuals with ASD demonstrate extraordinary skills in areas such as mathematics or memory feats. And that's definitely how Ray is seen in this movie. However, he's never actually said to have savant syndrome, even though only 10% of people with ASD do have savant syndrome. So that is a little bit misleading. Looking at the psychosocial stigma, this movie does perpetuate some stereotypes associated with ASD. We see this stereotype of high ability of memory, recall, and math skills, an ability to communicate verbally, an ability to give and receive affection, as well as an ability to make personal decisions. And that relates to this quote from the Longmore article, which says, "Disability results in separation from the community." And I felt that this movie did perpetuate that stereotype because at the end, Ray does go back to live at the Walbrook Institution, which just kind of perpetuates the idea that if you have a disability, you have to be separated from the community. Since this movie was released in the 80s, it really was a first glimpse for many people at autism spectrum disorder. And while representation is incredibly important and a very good thing, the type and amount of it matters a lot as well. This quote from Hazenbach says, "The disability or results of the disability are the focal points, not the person." And again, I felt that this quote really related to the movie. In this movie, Ray is seen as the Rain Man, the autistic savant, and really his disability is put before he is, just as a person who happens to have autism. The movie also has a really large focus on his brother Charlie, and it looks at Charlie's growth and his acceptance of his brother who has autism. In this movie, Charlie also uses a lot of discriminatory, very hurtful language that definitely puts Ray's disability at the forefront. So some effects on individuals from this movie. In terms of representation, people who have autism may feel represented from this movie if they find that it's something that represents their personal experiences and lives. At the same time, though, there is a chance that people will feel ill-represented if they find that this film does not accurately depict the experiences that they've had or the people that they know have had. For people without disabilities, I think that this movie could definitely bring awareness and kind of show inclusion for ASD and work to inform people. However, at the same time, if this is somebody's only interaction or only sense of awareness with ASD, it could definitely have the potential of being harmful. This movie does not give the full picture, and it may enforce stereotypes that people have about ASD. In terms of my own learning, I definitely had my assumptions challenged. I learned a lot more about autism versus savant syndrome and how they're different from one another. I also noticed similarities and differences between Ray and then people that I know who have ASD, and this did challenge some of my prior beliefs around ASD and students who have it and things relating to that. To apply this to my teaching, this film, and more specifically the research I did around it, definitely taught me a lot about teaching individuals with ASD and how I can support them in the classroom. And it also brought to my awareness different stereotypes. I had to kind of step back and check myself and ask myself, have I ever fallen into believing these stereotypes? This also gives me something to watch out for in my own classroom. My role as an educator is something I thought about a lot, and how can I best support my students? These are my references, and that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.